Ladies and gentlemen, listen to me closely. You were not created to be average. You were not designed by God to walk through life with your shoulders slouched, voice shaky, and confidence buried under fear. You were crafted with excellence in your DNA. But here's the problem. You've been living beneath your potential, acting like you don't know who you are. Speak to yourself like you're royalty. That means stop entertaining the kind of inner dialogue that tears you down, doubts your worth, and questions your value. You've done that long enough. It hasn't made you humble. It's made you hesitant. Royalty doesn't second guess its identity every morning. Royalty wakes up knowing who it is, why it exists, and what it carries. When you understand that you were created with divine intention, you stop tolerating language, internal or external, that contradicts your greatness. You can't walk in power if you speak in fear. You can't show up like a leader if you speak to yourself like a victim. The problem is many people wait for external confirmation before they grant themselves internal permission. But confidence doesn't start when others notice you. Confidence begins when you notice yourself. You need to hear your own voice affirming who you are before anyone else does. Not just once, but daily. Not just when things go right, but especially when everything feels wrong. Every time you speak over your life, you're either writing a decree or digging a grave. You're either planting seeds of destiny or sowing weeds of destruction. You need to speak to yourself the way a king would train a prince, or the way a queen would raise a daughter, firm, clear, full of vision, because you are being raised into the next version of yourself. You are not here to survive. You are here to rule. And rulers don't apologize for recognizing their authority. Stop repeating what the world says about you and start declaring what heaven has already said. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. You are equipped. You are anointed. You are necessary. You are set apart. When you hear those words coming from your own lips, something begins to shift, not just in your heart, but in your habits. Because how you speak to yourself determines how you treat yourself. And how you treat yourself sets the tone for how the world will treat you. Do you know what happens when you speak to yourself like royalty? You stop begging for scraps. You stop chasing approval. You stop hiding your voice just to make others comfortable. You realize that your presence is valuable, your words are weighty, and your purpose is not up for debate. You stop tolerating environments that dishonor your identity, and you start creating spaces where your light doesn't have to shrink to fit in. Your inner dialogue should match your divine design. If God didn't call you weak, why do you? If your Creator never labeled you worthless, why do you? That voice in your head must be retrained, because your destiny cannot afford the damage caused by careless words, even if they come from within. Speak with the discipline of someone who knows their words are building a throne, not a trap. Your mind responds to your mouth. If you want to think differently, speak differently. You don't wait until you feel confident to talk like royalty. You talk like royalty until you feel confident. That's the process. You have to declare what you are even while you're still becoming it. That's not lying. That's leadership. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. It's about choosing to speak from the truth of your identity, not the mess of your insecurity. Look in the mirror and say what you've been afraid to say. I am powerful. I am disciplined. I am wise. I am chosen. I am called. Not once, not occasionally, daily. Because just like a king or queen must speak declarations to keep their kingdom in order, you must speak life to keep your mindset in order. Silence is not humility when your silence gives power to fear. You don't fight lies with quiet, you fight lies with truth. Your words are not just expressions, they are instructions. Every time you speak, your soul listens. Your nervous system listens. Your spirit listens. When you say, I can't, your body prepares for failure. When you say, I will, your body prepares for victory. That's the supernatural authority of speech. You don't just describe your life with words, you design it. So why would you ever use language that leads you into limitation? Speak to yourself like you're royalty, because that's exactly what you are. Not be because of what you've earned, but because of who created you. Not because of your past, but because of your purpose. Royalty isn't about being better than anyone else. It's about being true to who you were created to be. Your voice has power. Use it to build yourself. Use it to command your morning, anchor your evening, and strengthen your spirit. Speak with fire. Speak with faith. Speak like you know the crown was made for you. Show up like you mean it, not halfway, not uncertain, not hiding behind excuses or fear of judgment. When you walk into a room, let your energy announce your presence before your mouth even opens. Your posture, your presence, your pace, everything about you should communicate conviction. People should be able to feel that you didn't just wander in by accident, you came with purpose. Too many people show up physically, but are absent mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Your presence should be loud even in silence, not because you're trying to impress, but because you understand your worth. When you walk with intention. Your stride is not just a movement, it's a message. Are you creeping through life, hoping not to be noticed? Or are you moving with the certainty of someone who knows they belong? You don't have to be arrogant, but you do need to be aware. Aware of your value, aware of your calling, aware of what you carry. Because when you know what's inside you, you stop moving like someone who's unsure of their right to take up space. You begin to embody the truth that your presence is not an accident, it's an assignment. Stop entering situations with your head down and your spirit hesitant. Raise your head, set your shoulders, breathe deeply. Show the world that you didn't show up just to spectate, you showed up to participate, to contribute, to lead, to shift the atmosphere. When you show up like you mean it, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror that reflects courage, a thermostat that sets the temperature for boldness. You're not just affecting how people see you, you're affecting how they see themselves. Your energy is contagious. Whether you know it or not, you're either adding fire or draining it. That's why showing up with full presence matters. It's not just about doing, it's about being. Be all there. Don't just be in the room. Bring something into it. Bring clarity. Bring excellence. Bring discipline. Bring light. When you show up like you mean it, you're telling the environment, I came ready, not perfect, not flawless, but ready to learn, ready to lead, ready to grow. The way you dress, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself, they all tell a story. What story are you telling the world about you? Are you sending the message that you believe in your future? Are you moving like someone who knows that what's in front of them is worth giving their best? You don't need expensive clothes or loud words to make a statement. You just need alignment. When your energy matches your intention, people feel it. And when you walk in alignment, doors that were once locked begin to open, not because you forced them, but because your presence demanded it. Some people are waiting for the perfect moment to go all in. But here's the truth. The moment becomes perfect because you go all in. Every day you show up halfway is a day you delay your own breakthrough. Excellence is not an event. It's a posture. You decide in advance, no matter where I go, I'm going to bring my full self. I'm going to speak with authority. I'm going to act like I belong, even when you're scared, especially when you're uncomfortable. That's when showing up like you mean it matters the most. You can't afford to keep rehearsing your limitations in your head before you walk into new opportunities. That inner script you repeat. I'm not enough. I'm not ready. I don't belong. It needs to be rewritten. Rewrite it with truth, with power, with vision. Because when you show up with your full identity, you silence the lies that tried to keep you small. You silence the doubts that said you were too broken, too late, too far behind. And you replace them with action, with presence, with impact. Don't wait for confidence to show up. Be the confidence. You don't need permission to be excellent. You need decision. Decide to show up strong. Decide to look people in the eye. Decide to answer with clarity. Decide to shake hands with strength. Even if your knees are trembling under the table, speak like you've been called for such a time as this, because you have. And when you act like it, the room will respond differently. People treat you according to how you treat yourself. If you walk in like you're unsure, the world will mirror that. If you walk in like you're worthy, the world will begin to adjust. That's not arrogance, it's intention. Show up like you have something to offer, because you do. Show up like your presence is a solution, not a burden, because it is. Show up like the outcome depends on your effort, because in many ways it does. You're not invisible, you're influential. But your influence only activates when you own it. You've been quiet long enough. You've been reserved long enough. You've been waiting for a signal that it's your time. But the signal is already inside you. When you show up like you mean it, you interrupt the narrative that says you're just another face in the crowd. You replace hesitation with conviction. You stop asking, will they accept me? And start asking, what am I here to build, change, or impact? Every moment becomes meaningful when you approach it like it matters. And every room becomes a stage when you decide to take ownership of your presence. Keep a promise to yourself daily. It sounds simple, maybe even small, but it's one of the most powerful things you can do to build unshakable confidence and deep inner trust. Every time you set a goal and follow through, no matter how small, you reinforce your identity as someone who can be counted on, not just by others, but by yourself. And that kind of self-trust is rare. Most people break more promises to themselves than they keep. They say they'll wake up early. They say they'll work out. They skip it. They say they'll write the plan, make the call, read the book, and it never happens. Not because they're lazy, but because they've trained themselves to stop believing their own words. You see, every promise you keep becomes a brick in the foundation of your self-worth. It's not about perfection. It's about consistency. You're not building a moment of success. You're building a pattern of belief. When you say you're going to do something and actually follow through, you send a signal to your mind and your spirit. I am someone who finishes. That identity shift is priceless. It changes how you speak, how you walk, how you show up in every area of life. And it starts with the smallest of choices, ones no one sees but you. It's easy to keep promises to other people because there's accountability. There's external consequence. But the real power is keeping promises no one is checking on. Waking up at 5 a.m. because you said you would, not because someone's watching. Sticking to the plan because you made it, not because someone else is holding you to it. That's how you train yourself to become disciplined. Not through external pressure, but through internal standards. And those internal standards will carry you through the storms that break lesser men and women. There's something sacred about honoring your own word. It's more than discipline. It's dignity. You reclaim your power every time you do what you said you'd do. You stop living at the mercy of your feelings. You stop negotiating with procrastination. You stop making excuses because you realize you're not just managing your time, you're managing your character. And your character is shaped by the daily decisions that seem small but hold eternal weight. You might not feel like doing it. You might not want to, but do it anyway. Because keeping a promise to yourself isn't about mood, it's about mission. If you only move when it's convenient, you'll never experience transformation. The version of you that you're becoming, the confident, powerful, reliable version, is on the other side of doing the thing after the feeling has passed. Emotion will lie. Excuses will whisper. But your decision to stay committed will remind you who you are. Most people lose confidence not because they failed, but because they abandoned themselves. They stop trusting their own voice. They learn to doubt their declarations because their actions never back them up. You change that by keeping one small promise a day. Just one. You don't need to overhaul your life in 24 hours. You need to prove to yourself that your word means something again. That you still have integrity, that you are capable of showing up even when it's hard. Start small. Drink the water you said you'd drink. Go on the walk. Say the affirmation. Turn off the phone when you said you would. These aren't just habits, they're declarations. They're daily reminders that you're in control. You're not a slave to comfort or distraction. You are someone who leads yourself. And when you can lead you, nothing and no one can stop your momentum. What you do in secret builds the strength you need in public. Don't underestimate how powerful it is to silently follow through. You're not doing it for applause. You're not doing it for Instagram. You're doing it because you respect yourself. You're doing it because your vision requires a version of you that is reliable, focused, and strong. And the only way to become that person is to train for it, one promise at a time, one day at a time. You weren't created to be inconsistent. That inconsistency you feel, that frustration, is your soul rejecting the lie that you're unreliable. Deep down, you want to trust yourself again. You want to believe your words. You want to know that when you say, I will, it actually means something. And it can. But it starts today with the next promise. Keep it. Keep it like it's life or death. Because in many ways it is. The death of your old habits, the life of your new identity, they both hinge on your ability to stay faithful to your word. You don't need 100 victories. You just need one win a day, one decision to honor your word. And when you stack those wins, your confidence will rise, your character will grow, and your future will become unshakable. Because no matter what the world throws at you, you'll know deep in your bones, I can count on me. Feed your mind faith and fire, because your mind is not neutral ground. It is a battlefield, and if you're not intentional about what you plant in it, weeds of fear, doubt, and mediocrity will grow by default. You can't afford to let just anything take root in your thinking. Your mind is the command center of your life, and whatever dominates your thoughts will eventually direct your decisions, shape your behavior, and define your destiny. That's why you must become the gatekeeper of your thoughts. Not everything deserves access. Not every voice deserves volume. You must feed your mind with what builds you, not what breaks you. Most people are starving spiritually and mentally because they consume content that entertains their emotions but starves their vision. You scroll for hours, comparing, complaining, and consuming, yet you wonder why your confidence is low, your passion is flat, and your perspective is negative. What you feed will live, and what you starve will die. If you keep feeding your fear with doubt, it will grow stronger. But if you feed your faith with truth, it will begin to silence the noise of insecurity. You were not created to survive on junk information. You were created to be filled with fire, divine truth, bold wisdom, and unshakable clarity. Faith and fire are not just emotions, they're fuel. You need fuel for the battles you're facing, for the dreams you're chasing, for the purpose you're pursuing. And that fuel doesn't come from mindless scrolling or toxic conversations. It comes from aligning your thoughts with what God says about you. It comes from filling your mind with words that breathe life, not poison. It comes from hearing truth until it becomes your new instinct, your new identity, your new normal. You need content that builds your courage, sharpens your focus, and reminds you of your calling. When you wake up, before the world tries to program you with pressure, you must program yourself with power. Speak truth, declare promises, read something that expands your perspective and elevates your energy. Your first hour of the day determines the tone of your mind. And if you don't fill it with faith and fire, the world will fill it with fear and confusion. You don't need to be motivated every second of the day, but you do need to be grounded. You do need to be anchored in something deeper than emotion. That's what feeding your mind daily will do. It roots you in resilience. The words you listen to, the books you read, the thoughts you repeat, they are shaping your future silently. You won't always notice the shift immediately, but it's happening. Just like your body responds to the food you eat, your mind responds to the input, garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. You want to elevate your life, elevate your input. Start being as protective of your thoughts as you are of your bank account, because one will determine the other. Your income can only rise as high as your mindset will let it. Don't just feed your mind motivation, feed it mission. Don't just feed it hype, feed it habits. You need more than a quick burst of inspiration. You need structure, repetition, discipline, a steady stream of wisdom that sharpens you like a sword and ignites you like a flame. Fire doesn't last without fuel, and faith doesn't grow without feeding. You can't live off a sermon you heard 2 weeks ago or a quote you saved months ago. You need to be refreshed daily, empowered daily, built daily. This is not optional, it's spiritual survival. Some of you are tired, not because you're doing too much, but because you're being fed too little. You're running on fumes, mentally drained, spiritually dry, because you've been consuming emptiness. Replace it. Replace the noise with nourishment. Start your day with scripture. Fill your space with declarations. Listen to voices that remind you of your worth, not your wounds. Your environment isn't just physical, it's mental. And when you feed your inner world correctly, your outer world starts to shift in response. You have to train your mind to think like a leader, like a builder, like someone who knows they're chosen. That kind of thinking doesn't come naturally. It must be fed daily. Fire doesn't just appear, it must be sparked. It must be stoked. And once it's burning, you have to protect it from the winds of distraction and doubt. Faith without fire is fragile. But when your belief is fueled by bold, consistent input, it becomes unstoppable. That's how you rise, not just with talent or ambition, but with a mind that is saturated in truth and set on fire with vision. Your life will never rise above the level of your thinking. That's why feeding your mind is not just a task, it's a responsibility. Every time you choose faith over fear, clarity over confusion, and truth over lies, you're building mental muscles that will carry you through storms and seasons. You can't delegate this. No one can think for you, believe for you, or build your mindset for you. It's on you. And it starts with what you feed your mind today. So take control of the menu. Take control of your mental diet. Feed your mind like your future depends on it, because it does. Be a person of value, not just a person of volume, because the loudest voice in the room isn't always the wisest. The most visible person isn't always the most impactful. In a world obsessed with noise, presence is often mistaken for substance. But true influence isn't about how many people hear you. It's about how many lives are better because of what you said, how you said it, and how you lived it. Noise fades, but value leaves a legacy. It's easy to talk. It's easy to be everywhere and say everything. But the real question is, what are you depositing into the lives of others when you show up? We live in a generation where people confuse attention with authority. Just because you can hold people's focus doesn't mean you're adding anything worth keeping. There's a difference between being impressive and being impactful. Impressive is momentary. Impactful is eternal. If all you do is speak to be seen, you may gain applause, but you won't gain respect. People will eventually forget what you posted, but they'll remember how your presence elevated them. Being valuable means you bring something with you: insight, encouragement, clarity, perspective, strength. You are a solution, not just a sound. Too many are chasing platforms before they've developed purpose. They want to be heard before they have something worth saying. They want to lead before they've learned how to serve. But value doesn't come from volume. It comes from depth. It comes from doing the quiet work when no one is watching. It comes from studying, growing, refining, and sharpening yourself so that when the moment comes, you don't just fill the space. You transform it. You don't just speak louder, you speak clearer. And your words cut through the noise like a sword. You must ask yourself daily, what am I bringing to the table? Because a seat at the table means nothing if your plate is empty. Just showing up isn't enough. Be the one who walks into the room and lifts the energy, not because you were loud, but because you were solid, because you were rooted, because your words had weight. Being a person of value means people are better after encountering you. They think deeper, aim higher, and believe more because of your example, not your echo. Volume is often driven by insecurity. It masks a lack of preparation, a lack of identity, a need for validation. But value comes from security, from knowing who you are, what you carry, and why you're here. When you're rooted in purpose, you don't have to shout. Your consistency speaks for you. Your fruit speaks for you. Your work speaks for you. And even in silence, your presence says everything. Because value is magnetic. It draws the right people, the right doors, and the right impact. There are people who won't remember your name, but they'll remember how you made them feel. That's value. There are rooms you'll walk into where no one knows your title, but they'll know something shifted when you spoke. That's value. And that kind of influence can't be faked. It can't be bought. It can't be borrowed. It's earned through integrity, through showing up consistently, through living in alignment with your message. Anyone can turn up the volume, but not everyone can carry substance. Make your words cost you something. Don't speak just to impress, speak to transform. That means spending time in silence before you open your mouth. That means praying before posting. That means studying before teaching. When you operate like that, your voice carries authority, not just volume. It carries truth, not just opinion. And people begin to listen differently. Not because you demanded their attention, but because your life earned their trust. People of value are rare because they've done the inner work. They've faced their own shadows. They've sacrificed comfort to gain wisdom. They don't need the spotlight to feel significant because they've built something deeper. Significance from the inside out. They don't compete. They contribute. They don't chase. They create. And they understand that being valuable is not a destination. It's a daily decision to bring your best, live with purpose, and lead with integrity. When you focus on value, you begin to attract differently. You attract opportunities that align with your character. You attract people who respect your presence, not just your performance. You attract environments where substance is appreciated more than show. And you find yourself building something lasting, not just a brand, but a body of work. Not just a following, but a foundation. One that can't be shaken by criticism or canceled by culture, because it wasn't built on noise. It was built on truth. There is nothing wrong with being visible. There is nothing wrong with having a voice. But don't let your visibility outpace your value. Don't let your voice be louder than your wisdom. Let who you are speak louder than what you say. And when you live like that, when you walk in rooms not needing to prove yourself, but ready to serve, you'll find that volume is temporary, but value multiplies. Embrace discomfort daily. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but as a deliberate part of your daily routine. Growth is never born in comfort. Comfort is where your potential goes to sleep. It's where dreams die slowly under the disguise of I'll do it later, and I'm not ready yet. Discomfort is not the enemy, it's the environment of transformation. If you want to become someone you've never been, you must be willing to do things you've never done. That means waking up and stepping directly into the unfamiliar, not running from it. Discomfort stretches you in ways comfort never will. It reveals your character, tests your faith, and sharpens your focus. While comfort tells you to stay the same, discomfort invites you to evolve. That hard conversation you've been avoiding, that workout you don't feel like doing, that decision you keep postponing, those are all doors to the next level. But you can only walk through them by choosing discomfort over ease. Every day you resist discomfort, you delay your destiny. But every time you choose it, you strengthen the version of yourself that's built to handle more. You must stop seeing discomfort as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. You're not suffering. You're strengthening. You're not being broken. You're being built. Diamonds aren't formed in gentle conditions. Warriors aren't trained in silence. Purpose doesn't emerge from ease. So don't just endure the discomfort. Embrace it. Invite it. Welcome it like a coach, not a curse. The sooner you align yourself with the process, the quicker you become the person you were designed to be. Discomfort is where discipline is formed. You don't need discipline when things are easy. You don't build grit when everything feels good. You build it when your body screams to quit, but your spirit says, keep going. You build it when you want to stay in bed, but you get up anyway. When you want to procrastinate, but you move anyway. When you want to complain, but you choose gratitude instead. That's when mental muscles are formed in the fire, not the fantasy. And those muscles will carry you farther than motivation ever could. Every goal you set is guarded by discomfort. That's the gate. That's the toll you have to pay. Most people never reach their goals, not because they're not capable, but because they're not willing to be uncomfortable long enough. They quit at the first sign of resistance. But if you're serious about becoming great, you've got to learn how to stand in the fire without flinching. You've got to train your mind to interpret pain as progress and resistance as a reminder that you're getting stronger, not weaker. Discomfort reveals what you truly believe. It exposes the gap between what you say and what you do. It forces you to decide whether your convictions are